49ers intel coming out of day one of veteran minicamp, mandatory veteran minicamp. We did not see Brandon Aiyuk out there, and Trent Williams was the only other player who was not at the 49ers facility today. But Kyle Shanahan confirmed that Brandon Ayuk's absence was due to the contractual issue that we all know about. Trent Williams was not there because his daughter is graduating. He's going to be there tomorrow. But anyway, this is 49ers Intel. This is going to be headlined by the fact that Ricky Pearsall looks damn good. He looks like a player at 49ers minicamp. And this goes back to OTAs for San Francisco. Ricky Pearsall has, hell, I'll even go back to rookie minicamp. There are all those reports at rookie minicamp. Oh, Ricky Pearsall's not looking good. I called him out. And I was correct again, because those reports were false, and Ricky Pearsall looked good at that very first rookie minicamp practice, gaining all kinds of separation. The problem was they didn't have Purdy throwing to him, so the quarterbacks couldn't hit an open receiver in that practice. Well, now the quarterbacks are hitting Ricky Pearsall, Brock Purdy especially. Today he made a couple really nice catches, including one in a lot of traffic against Renardo Green, who's the 49ers rookie safety out of Florida State. Now, Renardo and Ricky have a little bit of a history. Go back to college, Ricky Pearsall for Florida, the Gators, against Renardo Green. And Renardo, he played against a lot of good receivers because they played LSU a couple times. Man, driverless car going nuts on us today. Changing lanes, doing all this cool stuff. Good job, Casper. Anyway, they played LSU a couple times. They had Malik Neighbors on the other side, first-round pick of the New York Giants. They had Brian Thomas Jr., another first-round pick. Between his matchups against Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, this new 49ers cornerback, allowed only 5 catches. 5 catches and 60 routes run against him, against 3 first-round receivers. So anyway, Renardo Green at the college level showed that he can guard good receivers. Today he was up against Ricky Pearsall, and I mean, it was good coverage, but Pearsall just out-muscled him. It was one of those out-comeback throws right on the sideline right in front of me. And look, we're going to see a driverless car passing another driverless car. There's one in front of me. I thought, well, no, we're just going to be turning behind him. So you're going to see a driverless car turning behind the driverless car. That's exactly what my car looks like, except I'm in the one right behind it. But anyway, it was a nice throw from Brock Purdy right into the spot where it had to be. But in order for the catch to be secured, it took good, strong hands from Ricky Pearsall. It was one of those plays where I thought that Ricky answered some of the strength questions that we've had about him. And you know, that's natural. He's 189 pounds. He's really slick. He moves well. He generates all kind of separation. Every time I look up, I see Ricky Pearsall separating. That's been the case through rookie minicamp. It's been the case through OTAs. And now at veteran minicamp, he's separating. He consistently separates. He's got, you know, he has a really, really good command of his footwork. This goes back to the fact that Ricky's dad was a star receiver in Northern Arizona. He's a firefighter now for the city of Phoenix. Ricky Pearsall's dad has, I think, implemented such good technical habits into his son, to where he's got that dirty stutter step. He knows how to lean going into some of his breaks. He knows how to set defensive backs up with the nuances in his footwork. So when you look at all that and the fact that Ricky Pearsall is able to carry it over onto an NFL practice field and use it to gain good separation there, you see all that stuff on the field and you're like, wow, okay, he's got the movement part of his game down. But then you want to say, okay, now that he's got the movement part of his game down, is he able to handle the physicality of the NFL level? Is he able to handle the press man coverage? That was my question for Ricky Pearsall right when they drafted him. And it remains my question today because at these practices, you can't press. These are non-padded practices. Pearsall's in a blue non-contact jersey. He hasn't signed his deal yet. That's not a big deal, by the way. That's nothing to freak out about. The deal's preset. It's offset language debate between lawyers and agents and all of the above. So that's not something to really obsess over, right? Kyle Shanahan said that he had some soreness the other week, so they put him in the blue non-contact jersey as a precaution. But anyway, it's one of those things where he can't prove that he can consistently beat press man coverage until press man coverage is actually allowed, either in practice or at games. But I think that everything that we've seen so far of Ricky Pearsall, from his college tape to the fact that we see the way that he's built, plus, I mean, it's not just your size that can beat press man coverage. It's the way that you combine your size with the quickness and the technical know-how. He's got the big quads. He's got the strong base. I think everything is trending in a good direction for Ricky Pearsall as far as being able to win against physical coverage in the NFL. But that's certainly something that I'm really, really excited to see once it's possible for Ricky Pearsall to display over the course of training camp and then the regular season. But the 49ers got a dude. Everything that we've seen so far from Ricky suggests that they've got a guy with presence, with separating ability, and the goal around any MVP finalist quarterback should be to infuse the room of targets around him with as much talent as possible. And that's obviously a move that the 49ers made when they drafted Ricky Pearsall. They also drafted Jacob Cowing. Got somebody honking behind us. I wonder if they're honking at me. Sorry, man. If you're honking at me, I'm not driving. The driving is being done by my invisible friend right now. Just an angry driver at rush hour here in San Francisco. But anyway, they drafted Ricky Pearsall. They drafted Jacob Cowing. They've decided to keep Brandon Aiyuk on the roster, Deebo Samuel on the roster. They still have George Kittle. They still have Christian McCaffrey. They extended him today. Though, I mean, they just added Logan Thomas. The 49ers have an insane amount of weapons. This is exactly what you want to do when you have a good quarterback. You have a good quarterback, you want to load up as much around him to capitalize on the fact that you're not quite paying the quarterback a lot of money yet, right? The quarterback's only making about $1 million this year. So figure out a way to stock the lineup as much as possible around the QB to make that offense as good as possible. And that's where Pearsall really fits into the picture right now. The 49ers are just trying to load up in a win now Super Bowl year. People always want to talk about what does this mean for the future? How are the 49ers going to maneuver? Well, they have a lot of options, especially if Ricky Pearsall's good. And that's all that you can ask for if you're the 49ers is option power. You want to cross those bridges when you actually get to them. Right now, we're going to flip this around and show you San Francisco City Hall. Looking very, very beautiful alongside the Opera House and all those performing art centers. But look at that. San Francisco City Hall. Not bad on this Tuesday afternoon. It's just a beautiful day in the Bay Area. But with all the options that the 49ers potentially have, we can talk about what might happen. Say that Brandon Aiyuk doesn't sign a contract and he says, fine, that what the 49ers aren't offering me isn't enough. But the 49ers obviously hold the cards. They'll say, well, just play on the 5th-year option. And Aiyuk doesn't want to lose any money, so he plays on the 5th-year option. Well, then the 49ers will have Brandon Aiyuk entering unrestricted free agency after the 2024 season, unless they tag him. They'll have Ricky Pearsall with still 4 years of team control under their belt with Ricky Pearsall because they have the 5th-year option. That's way further up in the contract. They'll have Deebo Samuel with still 1 year left after this year. They just re-signed Juwan Jennings, so that means they still have him under contract for 2025. You could see where I'm going with this. The 49ers have so much optionality, so much potential optionality ahead of them. We don't know how this is going to go. Aiyuk can sign a big deal, and then Deebo Samuel will have 2 years left, and it will be big-time proving grounds for Deebo Samuel this year. And yes, it would look very financially tight for the 49ers if they had to pay Brandon Aiyuk and then Deebo Samuel after that. But guess what? I don't think that the 49ers have shown that they're in the business of giving up really productive players. So if Deebo Samuel in a contract year essentially gave the 49ers extremely, extremely good production, and we've seen him do that before because this is an all-pro caliber player, especially with what he did in 2021. If he does that again in 2024, then the 49ers would have every reason to bend over backwards to keep him for 2025. And they've cracked the financial code in many ways. And I just did a live right before this from the studio. because I wanted to show you guys the numbers. But then I wanted to get in the car and drive up to go swimming and go see the Golden Gate Bridge on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. It's going to be a hell of a sunset today. So I cracked the numbers and I showed, the 49ers are deferring cap payments into the future. Nothing's going to stop them if they feel that it's a financially efficient play to do the same with Deebo Samuel that they did with Christian McCaffrey. If they see that this guy's consistently available in 2024, they want him part of the football team because he's an absolute battering ram there, they can run an extension for Deebo Samuel next offseason that defers a lot of his cap payments into the future when the cap will be higher. It's all about efficient allocation of resources. There's a reason why teams like the Saints, who have tried to do something similar as the 49ers, have fallen into the salary cap hell, and it's because they haven't been as efficient with the resources. And when you fall into salary cap hell, that means that your expenditures are too great in any given moment, and you have to just cut players to get underneath. The 49ers want to be preemptive, and they've tried to be preemptive about their expenditures. So a great example, when you're pushing all this money into the future, you're taking out this zero interest loan, and you're hoping to surf the wave of the rising salary cap. A great example of one of the tougher decisions that you have to make on the front end to avoid more painful cuts that you don't want to make on the back end is something like the Arik Armstead maneuver. They saw that Arik Armstead had missed 13 games over the past 2 seasons, and they saw that his number was going to be 18 million this year. And the 49ers said, you know what? That number's too big. That's not efficient. We need to preemptively get in front of this and make that number more efficient so that way we save money down the road that we can then use as buffer when we have all these other expenditures that we're pushing into the future. So they went to Arik Armstead, whose number was 18 million, and they told him, hey, that number's way too high. How about 6 million? It's a pretty low number, right? That was a $12 million cut. Arik Armstead said, no, that's too low. And the 49ers said, okay, well, do you think you could get more elsewhere? And Arik Armstead said, yeah, I think I could get more elsewhere. So Arik Armstead went onto the market. He sniffed around, his agent did, and he found 14 million annually from Jacksonville. So the 49ers were at 18 million for Arik Armstead previously. They offered 6. Jacksonville offered 14. I think that the 49ers' maximum number of efficiency in their head, I think they think that what Jacksonville did was an overpay for Arik Armstead. I think the 49ers in their head were probably around 10 million for Arik Armstead. And with Jacksonville offering 14, that obviously wasn't going to be something that worked for the 49ers, right? So they let Arik Armstead go, and the reason why I say 10 million is because they're paying Malik Collins, who people will say probably a little bit worse than Arik Armstead, but he's been more durable. They're paying Malik Collins, who's Armstead's replacement, about 8 to 9 million. So I think that was the 49ers max for Armstead, was about 10 million. By the way, House of Prime Rib, legendary place. They're lining up outside. That might be the best prime rib place in the United States. I'm going to have to go there, and we're going to have to do a show from the House of Prime Rib one day, or at least get the prime rib onto the show. So the Armstead maneuver for the 49ers was their way of being financially efficient. And yes, it was cutthroat. Yes, it was something that they didn't necessarily want to do, but the salary cap exists. It is real. And you have to figure out ways to achieve that financial efficiency there so you're not forced to gain financial efficiency at a time when it's going to hurt your football team on the field a whole lot more. So you can afford doing stuff like this with Christian McCaffrey. You can afford giving Brandon Aiyuk an extension. Well, you can allegedly afford it. We'll see where that number ends up being, and we'll see if Brandon Aiyuk agrees to whatever the 49ers offer. But you can afford to do that with Aiyuk. You can afford to do the Nick Bosa record extension the year before, the Deebo Samuel extension before that, Fred Warner, George Kittle. You can afford all these big money propositions if you're financially efficient on the front end. And that's how the 49ers have successfully surfed this financial wave so far. Now, the big deal is going to be Brock Purdy, right? The Brock Purdy extension is the one that is looming. That's going to be the biggest expenditure. It can happen as soon as next year. That's the one. All the other dominoes are going to have to fall around that. And that's where I go back to practice today. And I talked about Ricky Pearsall looking good. And you want to load up the lineup around Brock Purdy as efficiently as possible. Purdy's looked damn good. The zip on his throws is definitely there. And you know, one thing people are like, yeah, Brock Purdy, it looks like he's throwing a little bit harder, but he's never thrown as hard as Josh Allen, man. He needs more miles per hour on his throws. And it's like, guys, do you realize that Brock Purdy, one of the reasons that he was the most efficient quarterback in football, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in documented NFL history, one of the reasons behind that is that he throws a catchable ball. It's not all about throwing a fastball at 98 miles per hour. It's about throwing a ball with touch that receiver can actually consistently catch. I think people undervalue that part of Brock Purdy's game, but as I'm seeing him throw today, and he's throwing darts to the sideline. He's hitting his target in stride. He's hitting his target right on the hands, right where it needs to be for a throw to be caught in bounds. I'm thinking this guy is so accurate, but he's also so good with pulling the strings of timing. I don't care if he's throwing 98 miles an hour or 92 miles an hour. I know that he can throw hard enough, but most importantly, I know that he's throwing more accurately than almost every other quarterback in the National Football League. And that's why Brock Purdy's going to get the big bucks. One of the many reasons, right? The accuracy is obviously on point. The touch is on point, but the timing is on point. And it's a combination of all those things that I think is hard for some people to conceptualize. They just want guys that throw fastballs the whole time. But Purdy is just as good at this as anybody in the league right now. Maybe with the exception of the guy in Kansas City, Mr. Mahomes. But he's an elite quarterback at the very top. And I think it's really, really apparent and really easy to see why the 49ers are going to pay him huge money when you see not only him at practice with this touch, but him, you know, his tape and how he's done it over the past couple of years. Now, this ties into the Aiyuk situation because he's got great rapport with Brandon Aiyuk. And that's worth a premium to the 49ers. And that's why they want to get this done. And that's why I think the Justin Jefferson thing was frustrating, not only to the 49ers and the Cowboys, to the entire league, because the Vikings kind of broke the market there in a way that didn't seem particularly necessary. And it's probably going to create more of a prolonged standoff here between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk and the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb. But the bottom line outside of the finances is that Aiyuk and Purdy have rapport. And rapport does not come for free. Rapport should not be taken for granted. When I think about rapport, I think about the post, the little skinny post in Seattle on Thursday night, Thanksgiving, right? The touchdown that Purdy threw before Aiyuk even came out of his break. It's stuff like that. I mean, you could load up the roster with all the Logan Thomases in the world and, you know, and you could re-sign Christian McCaffrey, and that's great. Christian McCaffrey has a massive impact on the passing game. Probably, he might have the biggest impact on the passing game that there is outside of a quarterback in the NFL. There's an argument to be made there. You could do all that, and that's great, and that helps Purdy, and that helps the team. But the rapport that he has with Brandon Aiyuk is something that's irreplaceable. I mean, that gives you an extra oomph as a passing offense and as an offense in general, because Aiyuk is such a good run blocker too. So he's kind of that positionless skill position weapon, and that he can block, that he can catch. It gives you an extra oomph that you wouldn't be able to have if you didn't have Brandon Aiyuk. And I think that's really important to mention because he is such a big deal to this 49ers team. Look, we're on Hyde Street, or we're passing Hyde Street. There's a cable car, Giants flag. I saw a cable car yesterday at Embarcadero with a Niners flag on it. We'll be arriving at the Dolphin Club in 3 minutes. The only problem I've had in one of these driverless vehicles, I see a question right now, is that these things, sometimes they get stuck behind like a cable car and they don't pass it. But that's usually near my destination at the cable car turnaround, so I just get out and I walk the last block. I think I did a show where it got stuck, and it was like, okay, well, I'll walk a block. It's not a big deal. Andrew wants me to tell Casper to go down Lombard Street without braking. Casper might be programmed to not go down Lombard Street. I've never seen a driverless car go down there. But here, as you can see, like, we don't want to run over these cyclists. So Casper is going to tap the brakes, and he's going to let the cyclists go by. There's people on the crosswalk, and now we're going to stop and we're going to wait for them. You know, an aggressive driver probably would have just floored it right there. These people have a lot of trust in a autonomous vehicle, by the way. But they just crossed in front of us. Well, we're being safe in the car right now. And we're almost at Dolphin Club. This is Joseph Conrad Square in San Francisco. One of my favorite bars used to be here called Fiddler's Green.
Almost there.
No longer there.
Your phone, keys, or bag.
But one of my favorite current bars, it's still there, it's been there for a while, is the Buena Vista Cafe. They're up here on the corner. You know, I'm glad that we went around Hyde Street because this is where we got stuck in the past with this driverless car, behind a cable car right there in front of the Buena Vista. By the way, the Buena Vista, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's the home of the Irish coffee. It's where the Irish coffee was first really sold en masse. Great story. Oh, look, we got all the guys on their bikes now. Maybe we'll see some wheelies. But anyway, I'm almost there, so I'm going to have to wrap this up in a second. Any more questions? We're over 400 people. Maybe I could take you guys, maybe we'll continue this outside the car. I'll see if I have a chance to walk over into the Dolphin Club and give you guys a couple cool views. But can a cop give this driverless car a ticket? I guess. But who, I mean, don't you give a ticket to a person? They might ticket the company. Eric Gomes is encouraging people to ask good questions. I'm not saying that wasn't a good question, but you can ask 49ers questions and we can go from there. Look, we got a cable car as I wait for the questions. Crossing the Buena Vista. Got 2 cable cars. That's the one that we saw earlier, I think, with the Giants flag. So again, we're going to be making the turn. One thing I like the most about these cars is the way that the wheel turns without the driver actually being there, you know? You gotta get some torque on that wheel to get it to turn that way. Is Jacob Cowing looking like the new Taylor Gabriel? Well, they're both about the same height, right? They're both about 5'8", but Taylor Gabriel was an established veteran, succeeded with Shanahan. You got to give Jacob Cowing some time. Not everybody can look like Ricky Pearsall earlier on. Somebody asked me if this is inducing anxiety. I have no anxiety. I kind of prefer not being here with a human driver. It's probably the introverted part of me. CMC contract breakdown. I already did that. I just did a 50-minute video. You guys saw Christian, just go and play that. You might have missed it, so go ahead and watch that. I don't like to do contract breakdowns when I don't have my screen in front of me because I can't share the numbers with you visually, and I love sharing the numbers visually. Look, we're pulling up to the Dolphin Club. There it is. It's looking beautiful. Ghirardelli Square looking nice over there. It's really sunny and really bright. Leonard Floyd looks a lot skinnier than Nick Bosa. Leonard Floyd's built more like a wide receiver. All right, I've made it. It's time for me to go. I'm going to hop in the water. I'll talk to you guys soon.